This is the Comics Alternative, on location and talking with creators at Dallas Fan Expo 2017. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative on location. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this on-location episode, you're going to hear interviews I conducted with 6 individuals at this past weekend's Dallas Fan Expo. But before we get to those conversations, we want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative on Location is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price. And every single month, you're going to find some unbelievable, mind-blowing specials. Sometimes those specials could be as much as 45% off the cover price, sometimes 50% off the cover, but many times you can find discounts that go higher than that.
That's right. And this month, as in every month, you can check out their bundles where they offer you 45 to 50% off of books from Marvel, DC, and Valiant.
That's right. You can't beat the prices at Discount Comic Book Service because discount is in their name. Go to dcbservice.com for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your titles there, please be sure to send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
That's right.
Well, Andy, while you were overseeing this past weekend the Sumter Comic Arts Symposium, I was hanging out, at least on Saturday, at the Dallas Convention Center for Dallas Fan Expo, talking with several creators.
That's great.
Yeah, and this is the big one for this year, because Dallas has, over the past several years, 2 to 3 cons like this a year by the Fan Expo people. And this is the big one, coming a little earlier in the season. And there were a lot of people that I wanted to talk to. And I had the opportunity to speak with several people there in Artist Alley, some of whom I've spoken with in the past. So you will hear conversations in a moment with Robert Wilson IV, who's been on the podcast a number of times. I talked for quite a while with Terry Moore again. I also have conversations with Ed Brisson, Joe Eisma, and Matt Hawkins. I also talked with Raechel Alexis Gasparac, and I guess I'm pronouncing that name correct. She is one of the publishers of Dusk Comics. Well, I guess now they're called Dusk Publishing. So it's a nice little array of different creators and publishers, and I hope you enjoy what you're about to hear.
Yeah, well, let's listen to it.
This is Dallas Fan Expo 2017, and the first artist that I come upon in Artist Alley is someone that we've talked with a number of times on the Comics Alternative, and that's Robert Wilson IV. Robert, how are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great show.
So you were out here yesterday. The crowds were really healthy.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it's kind of surprisingly brisk. I was talking to the show organizer, and they said that they had over 65,000 pre-sales, which is, that's huge for a Texas show.
Interestingly enough, also yesterday I saw, I think it was on Instagram, you pointed out that you were deep in the throes of the second volume or the second season of Heartthrob. And so tell us how that's going.
It's been going well. My wife and I had a baby recently, so I had to take a bit of a pause, so it got pushed back. But it just actually got solicited, so it's going to be out on June 7th. Yeah, I'm about a little more than halfway through drawing the second season.
Okay. So the first issue of the second season has been solicited, or this month?
Yes, was just solicited.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I haven't even started looking through this month's previews catalog, so I guess I'll see it.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay. So what can we expect that's different in the second season from the first?
Well, if you read the first season, you can kind of guess where things are going between Callie and Mercer. But there are definitely a few surprises in there as far as their relationship. They had to flee the United States after their big job. So most of it takes place in Toronto, which has been kind of fun, like researching, 1970s Toronto and Canada-isms and stuff like that. Lots of draft dodgers, lots of, hiding from the law.
So, how much experience outside of the research do you have with Canada?
Very, very little. I went once when I was in Boy Scouts, and I haven't been back since.
You went to Canada in Boy Scouts?
Yeah, this is some deep Boy Scout stuff. There's a high adventure base in the Boundary Waters, and it's basically like a canoeing and fishing trip. And so we went up and canoed out to this, pretty remote place, remote campsite out. It's technically on the American side, but then while we were on that trip, we went in and, got to explore around. I don't even remember what city it was. But yeah,
wow.
When I was 14.
I was in Boy Scouts, never went up north, unfortunately. I was in North Carolina.
Yeah. Did you ever get to do Philmont or anything like that?
Some of my friends did, fellow scouts, but I never did.
Yeah. Oh, man. I think I benefited from having a dad who is an Eagle Scout, and my brother was also in Scouts, but we did so many. Yeah, I did a lot of Boy Scout stuff.
Now, you were just referring to this next series of Heartthrob as season. Now, at this point, sometimes I'm not sure whether to call things like that seasons or volumes or what have you. In your mind, what is the distinction between a season and a volume?
There really isn't one. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter to me at all. I don't care about numbering. I would have been fine just going straight through. I know there is a pretty distinct end to the first volume of Heartthrob, and we kind of, we set it up that way on purpose. Like, we were kind of thinking about things in the way, you hear George Lucas talking about doing the first Star Wars movie, where it's like, well, if things don't go well, like, this can stand on its own. But it did well enough that Oni wanted to go ahead and do the follow-up to volumes. And so it does kind of make sense for them to stand on their own as kind of distinct arcs.
So how are things with Oni?
I love Oni. I love everyone at Oni. Like, they've been so good to work with. Like, they're really good to their creators. They're, I don't know, they're just good people.
Yeah.
They support the book.
Yeah. We recently talked with Kyle Starks because of his new series from Image, Rock Candy Mountain, and we were talking about his other comics, and he was just singing the praises of Oni.
Yeah, they're great. And, I don't know. I like being in the company of people like Kyle. Kyle's a good dude. I love that guy.
Well, you were telling me before I turned on the mic that you'll be at Heroes Con. So what other conventions do you have lined up for the season?
So I'm doing C2E2 in a few weeks. I'm doing Heroes Con in June, and then the very next weekend I'll be at Idiot Fest in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area. I actually think that con is on Google's campus. I'm very curious about that show. It's going to be interesting because they have, they're having Weezer and TV on the radio and OK Go, and it's like a music festival, comedy festival, comic convention all in one. But yeah, some really, really good spring lineup this year. C2E2 and especially Heroes are some of my favorite shows. Like, I don't think anyone does cons better than Heroes.
Well, in addition to your work on Heartthrob, is there anything that you're working on now or that you plan on in the relatively near future?
Yeah, so I've got 7-ish more issues of Heartthrob to draw, so it's going to be a while until I get to another project. But I have started writing a project that I'll be, writing and drawing, probably directly after Heartthrob.
Writing and drawing?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, hopefully directly after Heartthrob.
Anything you can tell us about it, or just still formulating right now?
It's kind of a space fantasy, science fiction thing. It's going to have a lot of my thoughts about economics and parenthood and Beyonce.
A potent combination.
Yeah. My interests.
Well, Robert, I want to thank you once again for taking the time and talking with us. It's always great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too.
Last year, as Raechel Rising was wrapping up, I had the pleasure of talking with Terry Moore on one of our regular interview shows. Since then, he has a brand new series, Motor Girl, and I am lucky enough to have him here in front of me at the Dallas Fan Expo. Terry, how are you doing?
Doing great, and glad to be here.
And the last time I saw you in person I think it was the last time you were in Dallas, and that was, 2012, maybe 2013, around that time?
Yes, I don't remember the exact year because they kind of run together, but yeah, I tend to get over here maybe every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And it's not that far for you because you're in Houston.
Yeah.
How has the Dallas Con this year been?
Been good. I'm glad to see a lot of familiar faces and friends here. The show itself is an amazing pop culture show. I think there are a lot of TV and movie fans here.
Do you feel at cons like this, where the emphasis is on pop culture in general, comics culture in general, a little overwhelmed that not as much attention maybe is being paid to the comics?
Well, sometimes it does feel a little bit like somebody put up a row of comic book artists in the middle of a TV fan show. Because we're definitely outnumbered, but there's still nice that we're here to represent, where the comic culture comes from and all that. And there's a lot of comic book fans here. So the thousands and thousands of people that are here to see TV celebrities, they're being exposed to, this is their chance to see comic culture, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. And you're in an interesting area, and I'm wondering if this works for you, in that you're at a corner spot, and many people are walking by on their way to the TV film people. How has that been?
I don't know if this is an advantage or not, because these people are on a mission. It's like at times I feel like I sat down in the middle of the Galleria during rush hour and everybody's just walking around me.
Yeah.
But it's a great place to people watch, and I'm watching them walk by right now, and it's the aisles are packed, and the people are trying to get to the other side of the crowd. It's a bit like the middle of an anthill right here, because we're right almost in the center of the hall, and so we're in a good transition spot. So I think if you had something flashy and visual to show off here, this would be a great spot.
Well, you definitely have things that are very visual, and, maybe if the crowd backs up enough, they'll take the time, as they should, to look at copies of Strangers in Paradise, Raechel Rising, Echo, and then your new comic, Motor Girl.
Yeah. And by visual, I meant, like fire-eating blowers, something,
Neon lights, things like that.
Torches, yeah, we need torches. But yeah, I'm here with all my books. I have 4 series now, and I've moved on to Motor Girl, so they're all on the table, and everybody can walk up and just take a look and see these things, in case they've never seen one before.
Well, I want to talk with you about this new series, Motor Girl, because when we last spoke about a year ago, that had not yet been solicited. We were, I was primarily concerned with the wrap up of Raechel Rising. And this is brand new, and we haven't talked about it yet on the Comics Alternative. So I'm glad to take the time to talk with you here about this. Where did the idea for this series come?
Originally it was just that writer's game of give me any three things and I'll make a story. So I had the idea I want to do a story with a girl, a motorcycle, and a gorilla. And it just kind of bloomed from that, silly challenge. I drew some sketches like that, and my friends responded to them, and it encouraged me to think about it more. And I actually drafted up a complete story idea maybe 5 years ago, and I showed it to somebody, and they hated it. They said, "Oh, we expected more from you." So I shelved that. And then when I finished Raechel, I came back to it and gave it the attention. I thought, okay, well, I'm supposed to be able to figure these things out. I'll figure this out, how to do a story that I like and that other people might like. And I dove in, and now it's something much more than the original idea. Sometimes I think my stories start off with an embarrassing idea, and then I try to justify it, and that's where the story comes from. Like, for instance, Strangers in Paradise, the whole story started off with a girl breaking up with her boyfriend in the park. She gets mad, takes her clothes off, and throws them at him. And I spent another 10 years justifying that scene. So in, Motor Girl, girl, gorilla, desert, junkyard, UFOs, all that. And I have to come up with a story that make it all plausible.
Yeah, I ran into a friend of mine here from graduate school, in fact, and I was telling him, and he likes your work as well. He hasn't read Motor Girl yet. He was asking me what it's about, and I was surprised in that I stumbled in trying to explain the premise because of these divergent elements, right? A young woman, war veteran, works in a junkyard in the middle of nowhere. There's a gorilla and there's some aliens. And he looked at me in a peculiar way.
I know. It just sounds... it doesn't work until you start getting to know them and you realize... And I don't think I'm doing any spoilers here, but you learn that the gorilla is invisible only to her. Only she sees it. It's a coping mechanism, how she survived a terrible experience on her last tour of duty. And so now... Clearly, she is struggling with something, and it casts a light on everything else that happens. The extraordinary things like the UFO and all that. You wonder, is any of that real too? And so the junkyard setup is really about this is kind of is it a sanctuary or is it a hospice? Is she going to survive or not? So it becomes more. Yeah,
no, because the woman who owns it is Lizzie.
Libby.
Libby.
And she's actually from Strangers in Paradise. She's the aunt of Francine from Strangers in Paradise.
Yeah. And so, we learned in that first issue that this is her junkyard, Libby's, and that she seems to be, she treats her like a daughter.
Yeah. And Libby says, you're the daughter I've always wanted. And Samantha says, but you have a daughter. And Libby says, I don't like that one. She just wants my money. I like you.
Yeah. Now, if I remember correctly, I read in the first issue that you said that this was an earlier idea. Your plan originally was to do something with Motor Girl after Strangers in Paradise, but then came Echo, and then maybe doing it after Echo, but then came Raechel Rising. So now you're finally getting to this thing that's been in, I guess, backstage for a number of years.
It has been backstage. I put it on the back burner. One interesting thing about it was that about 10 years ago, I announced that I wanted to do my next series would be Motor Girl. Well, a guy flagged me down on the internet and said, hey, I've already got Motor Girl. So I looked, and it was a web page, a URL, as part of his other bigger site. And he had a Motor Girl idea and a concept drawing. And so I said, oh, okay, well, I'll back off. I'll just think of something else. And I moved on and did, Echo or something. Well, when I was finishing up Raechel, Robin and I talked about Motor Girl again, and she said, what about that guy? So I went and looked him up, and it was still in the same spot. It was still just a concept idea and a concept sketch on a URL page. And he hadn't done the series or a story, and no trademarks, nothing, no pursuit. It was just an idea. And I had to make a tough decision. Does everybody in the world avoid it because you have an idea and post it on the internet? Or even though you didn't write it, It's kind of like saying I have an idea for 2 kids in the South and their dad goes to court to defend a black guy. I haven't written it and I may never write it, but that's my idea, so stay away. So I took a bold move and I went ahead and started making Motor Girl. And when he contacted me, he said, "Hey, Terry, I thought we had worked this out." And I said, "Well, I gave you 10 years to do it. Wow. You got a 10-year head start. And if you had done the series, I wouldn't do it, of course. Or I'd just simply rename it." And now I'm kind of sorry I even named it Motor Girl. I mean, it doesn't even really match her. I could have named it something more military or something. But so anyway, that's one of the secrets of publishing about, it's you have to make some bold moves sometime, and if you want something, you can't just stumble into everything. You have to sometimes charge for it and go for it.
Yeah, you mentioned the military title. One of the things I really appreciate about this series, and as we're recording this, there have only been 4 issues that have been released now, correct?
Yeah, and 5 comes out this next week.
Okay. So I've only read the first 4, and you tease out slowly, but in a good way, the character of Sam, in that you don't overload us with exposition the first 1 or 2 issues. And case in point, I remember, it may have been maybe issue number 2, she's taking off her shirt and you see marks on her back. No reference to this. Nothing. There's no explanation. And it had me wondering, something's going on here, that you eventually get to a little more explanation in issue either 3 or 4 when she goes to see the doctor.
Yeah, I like for the characters to have enough depth that it's impossible to profile them in one book or one paragraph. And I like a story that way too. The story is difficult to explain. It's more than a soundbite. So I think, and one of the rules I had in Strangers in Paradise, and maybe even the other books, is I wanted you to discover things at the same time the characters discover it. A lot of the characters have questions and they're trying to find answers, and you have to find it out with them. And it's tough sometimes because I don't like writers who do narrative and exposition through their characters. So sometimes my characters are lying. You can't trust them. Don't trust it just because a character said that, So I think it just makes the atmosphere rings a little more true.
Yeah. And another thing you've done that kind of slowly brings out the character of Sam is that we learn, and again, I can't remember if this is issue 3 or 4, I think 3, her love of jazz, and not just any jazz.
Yeah, the older jazz, with the giants from the 40s and the 50s. And I just wanted to slip that in there because I'm listening to a lot of jazz over the last couple of years. And it's just the last conversation you expected a girl to have in the junkyard in the desert. It's 120 outside, and she's yelling at her invisible gorilla, arguing over the credits between, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. And, sometimes I like I don't know, that seemed like something I would find on a British TV show that's well written.
Well, one thing that Sam and the gorilla can agree on, though, if I remember correctly, is Miles Davis.
Oh yeah, Miles Davis. And then every time you say his name, you have to stop and look to the heavens, and the angels show up and go So yeah, all hail Miles Davis.
Now, do you have pretty much set the entire story of Motor Girl?
Yeah. The middles are tricky. You always start off knowing the beginning and the end, and then the middle is where everybody goes crazy and makes bad decisions. So I'm in the middle right now, and I'm trying to herd the cats, but I know where I'm going. And the series is scheduled to end with issue 10 in October. Okay. And then it's in order to make way for January when the first issue of the new Strangers in Paradise comes out.
Okay. So you intentionally wanted to limit Motor Girl to 10?
Yes. Yeah, that's very deliberate. It's an get in, get out story.
Well, so tell me more about the, I guess, reintroduction of Strangers in Paradise.
Well, next year, 2018, will be the 25th anniversary of Strangers in Paradise, and subsequently my career, since that was my first work. So I've always wanted to go back to them and show that they're still cooler than us. So I'm going to do a new story, and it will be limited to just the year 2018. It'll be 9 issues, I guess, 6 to 9 issues, and all new material. So I'm very excited about it, and it started in January. And we're only doing like 5 shows this year. 2 of them are out of the country. Next year, we're going to do a dozen shows in America and just really promote.
Just a big play up of the anniversary.
Yeah, it's all about Strangers in Paradise, and I'll have new stuff and some coffee table book and the new series and some other things.
Because this will be your first Strangers in Paradise stuff since what, SIP Kids?
Yes, SIP Kids was, a little brief diversion, a little offshoot there. But I ended the series in, I think, 2007? So this will be my first work since then. The only thing I've done with them is just constant sketch requests. And they continue to have very diehard fans out there that are dying to see them again. And, because of the connection I have with having characters that I lived with for so long, they are my invisible friends. They're my invisible gorillas. So I see them on a regular basis in my mind and what I think they're doing now, where I left them, where they are now, what's going on. So this is really second nature for me to do this.
So it's going to be limited, Motor Girl, to 10 issues, and I know the first trade, this is going to be, issues 1 through 5. That's already been solicited. That should be out in the near future, right?
Yeah, that should be hitting the stores soon, very, very soon.
So do you plan on, so we'll have the 2 trades, will you plan on including both of those into one volume to the complete run of Motor Girl?
Yes, I won't be in any rush to put that out. I want to put those out, but the omnibus kills the sales on the trades, and the trades kill the sales on the singles. So if you only see a customer once every 4 years, it's hard to make a living. So you don't want to be in the habit of putting an omnibus out every year, because then you'll never sell the smaller chapters.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you for taking the time and talking with me once again. This is the 4th time you've been on the Comics Alternative. I've talked to you at 2 cons. We had that one long interview last year, and then we did the email interview. So great talking to you again and catching up. Good luck with the rest of Motor Girl and then coming into the new Strangers in Paradise for next year.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you for having me on and keeping me on your radar. And thank you to your listeners for checking my stuff out.
I'm at the table of Dusk Comics, and standing in front of me is Raechel, and she is going to educate me and our listeners on Dusk Comics. How are you doing today, Raechel?
I'm actually doing really good today. It's nice to meet you in person. I've heard a lot about you.
Oh, well, that's good, and I hope positive things.
I'm of course, positive. Always positive.
Yeah. So before I turned the mic on, you were telling me a little bit about what you're doing, and I thought, well, let me turn the mic on and share that news with others. So, again, educate me about Dusk Comics.
Dusk Comics, we started off just doing 3 simple graphic novels. Dusk, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Super creative titles there. Absolutely fun. But yeah. We did start with these 3, and then we realized there was a little bit more of a market as far as illustrated books. We worked with Elia in a Box to create Humans Really Irritate Me, which actually outsold Plusheen launch day, which we were all very, very happy of that, because we all know about Plusheen, and we know that that's a huge deal. We also have other simple titles like the Dusk official novel, which is an offshoot of the graphic novels. So we also have literary stuff. We also have Hell's Gate. Absolutely fantastic literary journey there. It's actually about a whole bunch of Japanese demons fighting for supremacy in their various kingdoms. It's very bloody, very brutal, and fantastic. Also, what I wanted to talk today about is Cosplay Unmasked. This is actually a photo book that we collaborated with Inner City Kids and Hope Rising, and we sourced some local DFW cosplayers. And
so all these people in the book are from DFW?
All these people are from DFW, or at least Oklahoma. I mean, we're going to branch everybody in kind of the con immediate area into it. But yes, we decided to actually create an actual book that wasn't just glossy, pretty pictures, that just sort of had static images of pretty people. Here we really wanted to showcase the people that are actually donating their time, their money, valuable resources, just so they can interact with terminally ill kids basically in the hospital by doing cosplays as superheroes, raising their spirits, all stuff like that. So here we actually decided to go the route of honoring the people that are honoring the other people.
Right.
So basically, this is a profile of the people in costume and out of costume and their day-to-day lives and how cosplay has changed their lives. Because let's be honest, cosplay is amazing. We all love doing it. We're all obsessed with it because we're all here at the cons anyway.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that these are people from the DFW area, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, is Dusk Comics based locally?
Yes, Dusk Publishing, now officially. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, we've recently just shifted our name to Dusk Publishing since we aren't singularly doing comics anymore. Don't worry, we still have a whole bunch of really awesome comics in the works, in the pipeline. But yeah.
So the migration to include, let's say, from comics to prose in doing more publishing, kind of in a broader sense, you're changing the name to Dusk Publishing.
That was also a move because we found that a lot of people confused us for a comic book shop. So we thought it was better to communicate with our customers and potential customers that, no, we do more than just do comics. Do we love comics? Absolutely. That is our core. That's our heart. But we also wanted to showcase a lot of local creators that otherwise wouldn't have that platform. And I like to think of myself, as far as a publisher, more as a curator of their work instead of just some unknown entity that you submit to that you don't know whether or not they like it, they don't say anything about it, and you really feel like you're taken advantage of with some of the bigger publishers. Here, I honestly want to make sure that my creators have a very, very good firm grasp on their work. They're able to have creative control. They get to write what they want to write. I can make suggestions that may help them sell more, but I'm just a curator of their work. This is my museum, and I'm only helping to show people their art.
Okay. And now, so let's talk a bit about the comics, because on the Comics Alternative, as the name suggests, that's primarily what we focus on. With Dusk, the title Dusk Comics, what is that about? In other words, give me a premise, a sense of what to expect in this title.
Oh, Dusk Comic, as it is? Dusk, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Wow. This is actually not something that you would normally expect from a comic that features vampires. There are some, pretty standard themes as far as, vampires, ghouls, all that regular stuff, but there's a lot of surprising magic that pops up out of nowhere, and it's not the hokey type of magic. It's like all of a sudden, whoa, did she really do that? That type of stuff. And we like to keep things a little bit edgy with our comics because we do feel like everything's a little bit more placated to the general consumer, but we're all about the niche market that is looking for something maybe a little bit darker.
Okay. So is it something a little bit like, and I'm going to make this comparison, it's rather popular, True Blood?
There are some elements that people will find very similar, but there's also a lot of elements that are not similar.
Like how so? Like how is it not similar?
Well, there is some blood drinking. Similar effects for people, but that's pretty much as far as it goes, is similarity to that. We don't have any strong sexual tones in the Dusk Comics series, but we are working on a couple of titles in the pipeline that you may see things that are a little bit
adult?
Yeah, a little bit more adult, let's be honest. A little bit more adult, because we are trying to break into our erotica genre. But
so you're starting to do you're starting to do some erotica titles in prose or comics or both?
Both.
Really?
Yes.
Lay it all out there.
I actually cannot talk about it right now. It's literally in the middle of development. There's an NDA involved. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So if our listeners wanted to find out more about Dusk Publishing, where would they go, let's say online, to do so?
You can still go to duskcomics.com. It'll automatically send you to Dusk Publishing. You can find us at Dusk Comics or Dusk Publishing on Instagram. You can follow me at KTTGoth on Instagram. If you want to follow me on Facebook, whatever. I'm Lady Raechel Gasparac.
Well, Raechel, thank you very much for taking the time and talking with me for the podcast, and good luck in Dallas this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. And you have a good one here, too.
About a year and a half ago, I had the pleasure of talking with Ed Brisson on the Comics Alternative, and we had a regular sit-down, 1 hour or so interview. I'm meeting him for the first time now at Dallas Fan Expo. Ed, how are you doing at the Dallas Con?
So far, I'm doing all right. I'm doing no complaints.
Is this your first time in Dallas?
This is my first time in Dallas and only my second time in Texas, so
Okay.
it's been interesting.
What was your previous experience in Texas?
I was here 11 years ago. I was in Austin for 2 days for a comic convention as well, and I felt like I missed out a little bit because I think there was like cedar pollen in the air, and I've long suspected I'm allergic to cedar, and that confirmed it for me. So I was homebound or hotel bound the whole time I was here last time.
Oh, well, I hope this has been a little better experience then.
It has been so far, yeah.
Well, good. Now, when you and I last talked, I think the first issue of The Violent was just about to come out, and we spent a lot of our time discussing that, and now we have the first volume of that. You told me right before I turned on the mic that you're starting to work on the second. So tell me a little bit about what went on with the first volume of The Violent and your experiences with it since we last talked.
So The Violent was a weird one for us. So Adam and I were really invested in it, but what had happened is it's a crime book, was always kind of a hard sell, and the single issue sales were not necessarily where we needed them to be to continue. But when the trade paperback came out, trade paperbacks sold well above what we expected. And so we do have the opportunity to continue it as a trade series. So Adam and I are sort of slowly just putting together plans to do that. Both he and I are doing a bunch of work for Marvel at the moment, so we're kind of trying to find a hole in the schedule where we can kind of fit in doing the second arc of The Violence. So it may be a little while still, but at some point it's coming.
I've heard from others that basically where most of the money, relatively speaking, comes in is in trade sales, not single issues. Yet you need the single issues in order to eventually get to the trade.
That's what we call a catch-22, I guess. Yeah. No, it's I think especially for something like The Violent, which is a story that I feel like is better absorbed in a trade. And actually, initially, our plan was that if we could get 10 issues going and could get the trades selling well enough, our plan was all along to sort of just flip to trades anyway. This just sort of pushed our hand a little bit more. But like I said, it's still going to take us a while to sort of get it all together where we can, work on the book and still feed our kids, So.
Yeah, the latter's really important.
Yeah. Well, my kid says so.
Yeah. And, I'm looking at the publications that you have here at the table, and I can just run down these titles like Sheltered, The Field, Comeback, The Violent, Cluster, and I think all but The Field we have discussed on the Comics Alternative. So you have quite a bit of experience with series. What do you learn from each one that you carry to your experience with the next?
Man, I don't know. That's a good question. I think I try and just, with each one, I try and flex a little bit different part of my brain. So like The Violence is a straight, fairly bleak crime story, but with something like The Field, it's kind of a dark story, but it's definitely like a black comedy. It's very dark, but I think very funny and kind of whacked out. Like it's crazy. I usually equate it to like a movie that you'll come across at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night when you can't fall asleep. That you just don't know what the hell's going on. That's how I came across like Repo Man and Eating Raoul and all those sort of older 80s films. So for me, I just try and flex a little bit different muscles and try and expand sort of the type of story I'm telling. I've got one that I don't have here called The Mantle, which is like an independently produced superhero one I did as well. So mostly it's just kind of, obviously I'm trying to improve myself as a writer with each book, but I'm just trying to sort of push my own boundaries and push myself outside of my comfort zone.
And then there was that other one that you did. What was it for Boom? The last contract. Last contract. I was about to say last call, but that's about drinking, right? So the last contract.
Yeah, so last contract, which the trade paperback comes out fairly soon, I think. We're in April right now. It's April, so next month. It's April 1st right now. Yeah. Nobody's done any.
No fooling. Yeah.
No April Fools so far. So yeah, that was that was a crime one that I wanted to inject a little bit of humor into, and I wanted to have something that was a fun and sort of an endearing crime story, which almost a polar opposite. Like the violent at its heart is like. It's about someone who cares, maybe like a little bit too much, or doesn't know how to properly express themselves. Whereas the last contract is just about it's a straight crime story, but it's got great humor in it, I think.
Well, getting back to the whole genre issue, one of the things I admire about your work is that you don't define yourself by just one genre, right? When we last talked, there was the last contract, and then the violent, which are crime. But Sheltered, something like a post-apocalyptic story. You have The Field with the horror, the strangeness. Comeback, something science fiction-y going on. Same thing with Cluster. So are there any genres that you really haven't worked in, but you'd like to try your hand?
I'm not sure,
Funny animal stories.
No, I feel like no. I feel like that's not going to happen. No, I am doing a lot of superheroes sort of stuff right now, but as for genres, I haven't really explored. I want to just do more sort of crime, but the crime stuff, I feel like, even though they're on surface crime, I'm trying to make them more they're much more like family, almost like the violence when it's all said and done is going to be a long family history story, as much as it is a crime story, and I think that's something that interests me with legacy of things happening and how they affect the next generation or the generation after, and what sort of caused that the generation before as well, what came in and caused that. But as for, which I think is not really answering your question, but as for genres, I think I would like to do a humor book at some point. I used to do humor webcomic when I was still drawing and doing everything myself, drawing, writing, coloring, and lettering, but I haven't found anything that really feels like it's a thing I want to do. I do have a pitch that I'm putting together right now that is more of a fantasy, but more of a modern fantasy. It's set present day with fantastical elements to it, but it's definitely, I would put it kind of in the fantasy genre.
You were telling me before I turned on the mic that about the violent, crime really just doesn't sell as much. And I wasn't aware that may not be that attractive of a genre to readers.
Yeah, it's always crime and Western are the two. Western is an even harder sell than crime, but it's just one of those genres that it's got. From doing the violence, I also did a series called Murder Book. There is a rabid fan base for it, but it's not a massive. It's more of a niche fan base. The people with the violent, I hear more about the violent than any other book I get. I get emails still about it constantly. So I think that the people who are into crime really like it, but there's just maybe not necessarily enough of them to always support a series going on.
Well, what do you have going on right now, new projects that either you're currently working on or you're thinking about that you can tell us?
Well, I've got Bullseye, which is currently coming out from Marvel. I think the third issue comes out next week sometime. I'm working on Iron Fist through Marvel, which the first issue just came out 2 weeks ago. And starting in June, I'll be the writer on Old Man Logan. And I think that's all that's going on that I can talk about at the moment.
Okay, so just the things that are going on in Marvel.
Yeah, just Marvel. I do have an image book that I am putting together, or a pitch for them. So I should not say it's an image book. It's a pitch that I'm putting together with an artist. Hopefully, we'll land at Image or with another publisher. But that's more of a 2018 thing, I think.
Well, look forward to seeing that come to fruition. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me here at Dallas Fan Expo. And good luck with the allergies. I hope that this trip to Dallas doesn't or to Texas doesn't affect you the same way the first one did.
No, so far it's been good. So far the only problem I've had is just that being a vegetarian in Texas is maybe not always the easiest thing. But I've been making my way. I've been okay so far.
Thanks a lot, Ed.
Yeah, thank you.
It used to be whenever I came to a Dallas con, I would talk with Joe Eisma. Although now that I think about it, it's been over a year, maybe a year and a half since we spoke at a con. How have you been doing?
I've been doing really well. Yeah.
This is the first time that I've talked with you after Morning Glories, and so how has life been post MG?
It's been pretty intense. Like I thought it was going to die down, but workload has just really gotten crazy. Yeah.
And I know the last time we talked, you were insinuating, if I remember correctly, that you guys were sensing that it may be about time to wrap things up, and there would be an endpoint at some time, because there were a total of how many issues?
There's 50 issues. The plan's 100. I mean, the book's on hiatus. It's not necessarily over, but it's definitely on ice at the moment. Okay. But yeah, I mean, where it's ended is kind of, it's at an ending point, but there's still more to tell.
Right. So, but if you don't bring it back, it won't be the worst thing. It's not as if, you truncated it and left everybody hanging.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's not like, the final episode of Deadwood.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Yeah. So you say that you've been busier than you thought you would be. In what ways?
I just started doing work for other people. Like I've been working for Archie and for Valiant and did some for DC. And yeah, it's been great. So, yeah.
So what projects are you currently underway on?
Drawing the Riverdale ongoing book for Archie Comics, which is based on the Riverdale TV show, which is, of course, based on the Archie Comics lore, in a way. And also working on Faith from Valiant Comics. Those are my two main projects at the moment.
I have heard a number of people say that the Riverdale show on what is it, CW? Yeah, is really good. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I was kind of dubious about it the first time they announced it, and I first saw the trailer because it looked really dark. It wasn't the Archie that I knew, but actually watching it, it's really a good show, really well written, and the characters they took really special care with the characters, even though the setting is a bit darker than you would expect from that property. It just works.
So how did the gig with Riverdale come about? Your earlier work with the new Archie?
Yeah, I was working on the Archie ongoing with Mark Waid, and we did a 5-issue story arc where we introduced the character Cheryl Blossom into that version of the continuity. And after my run wrapped up, they asked me to jump over to do the Riverdale ongoing. That's basically just what happened.
So what are the plans that you can tell us with Riverdale? Is it a limited series, or is it going to be kind of ongoing until whenever?
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's kind of like a companion piece to the TV show. I think, everybody was kind of on pins and needles hoping that the show would be successful to justify continuing the ongoing, but it's been pretty successful for Archie and for CW. So, yeah, it's an ongoing book. It's written by the team of writers that work on the TV show. They kind of switch off every issue, doing kind of stories that just kind of run within that universe.
Now, again, I haven't seen the TV series, but how aligned are the TV and the comic?
Very closely aligned. Like, you don't necessarily have to, read the comic to follow the TV show and vice versa, but you'll get, it's more like expanded material. Like, you'll get more out of, if you're really into that universe, you'll get more out of it if you also read the comic, because there's certain storylines that are alluded to in the TV series that we kind of expand upon in the comic.
Okay. And what about future plans for this year in terms of going around to different cons?
I'm really kind of cutting it down a little bit. I got a show. I'm doing C2E2 in Chicago next month, and then my next show scheduled isn't until August in Palm Springs, California. So those are my two big destinations right now. So.
Any particular reason why you're taking it a little easy this year?
Workload mostly. I mean, I doing 2 books. It's like I'm actually here at the show only for 2 days. Today's my only day. I'm not coming on Sunday just because I want to make sure that I get all my pages done for the other 2 books. And it's just I want to spend more time with my kids. I like being there for them, and traveling is always rough on everyone. So yeah.
Are you going to be at any local shops on Free Comic Book Day?
No plans. I haven't heard from any shops, so I didn't really make any plans.
And for listeners who are unaware, Joe lives in the DFW area, as do I. So I know you've done things at my local shop, which is now the Hala.
Yeah, Freddie, I'm good friends with him, and I love his shop. And we've been trying to set something up. We just never got around to it yet.
Well, good luck with things, and I hope that the other cons that you go to this year turn out productive, and you have time with your kids that's fun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm at the Top Cow table with the top writer, Matt Hawkins. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Happy to be on with you.
And how have you found the Dallas Fan Expo?
It's been really amazing. The last time I was in Dallas for a comic convention was 1996, so it's been a really long time. So it's good to come back with 20 years worth of work, you know?
Yeah. And this is maybe, I'm misremembering, but lately at least, it's the first time I've seen Top Cow presence out here at the Dallas Con. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the first time we've been here since Wizard World Dallas, which was 1997 or 8.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's a long time ago.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, you know, one question that I have for you, and I've always wondered about this, is the relationship between Top Cow and Image. I mean, it was, a number of years ago that you guys established the relationship, but what is the dynamics behind that?
Well, Top Cow was Mark Silvestri's studio that he founded. He was one of the founders of Image, and each of the founders had their own studio. Top Cow was just Mark's. And so it's been since the start of Image, since 92. Top Cow just kind of has always done kind of its own thing. We did Witchblade and Darkness. We do a lot of different titles now. So Image is kind of like, I compare it to the old General Motors, how it had all those different brands underneath it, and they're all kind of different, you know? And so Top Cow has always been kind of a bit more of an alternative to Marvel and DC. We always try to counter-program to them.
Well, you know, you do a lot of stuff that's definitely not in the I guess, the mainstream superhero-y kind of universe. And in fact, it seems that the comics that you do are a universe in their own because, you know, you have, Tithe, linked to Think Tank, linked to Postal.
Yeah.
And so when did this all come about?
Well, that was kind of an organic accident. It was not planned. I was doing Think Tank for a number of years, and then I launched Postal, and then we launched Tithe. And when I was doing Tithe, I realized I needed a hacker character to talk to another hacker character. And I'm like, oh, she could just talk to David Lauren from Think Tank. And so I did it almost as a whim, not intending to make it some sort of collected universe. And then I started realizing the connected tissue that could exist between these books. And so I started weaving it together. And by the end of Volume 2 of the Tithe, the bad guy from the Tithe, who originally I was going to write and have him killed, instead of having him killed in that issue, I wrote him going to Eden into Postal and hiding out in there. And so then the people that were after him have to try to infiltrate Eden and Eden's Fall. So it became kind of this, it was more of a fun thing that happened. It came out of the story organically. I've always hated crossovers that feel really forced, you know, and like 100 parts. So we did the Eden's Fall crossover, which was just 3 simple issues, self-contained story, and introduced a couple new characters as well.
Now, did the collected Eden's Fall come out, was it late last year or early this year?
I think it was early this year. It hasn't been out that long.
Okay.
So.
Now, will you do something similar to Eden's Fall in that bring your various properties together in another miniseries?
Well, I'm doing it now in everything, really. I mean, it's like now Postal sometimes has some issues of other Tithe characters in it. Think Tank had a couple cameos of other characters. One of the things I always loved about early Marvel was how you'd have, like, Peter Parker be swinging around on the rooftops, you know, and he'd land, and there'd be Daredevil standing there, and Peter would be like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, I don't have time to talk right now. And he'd jump down, and then there'd be a little footnote, see Daredevil 127. I always thought that was kind of cool as a kid, you know? So I don't want to make it forced. Like, I feel like a lot of big company crossovers now feel very forced. You know, like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to tie everything together, you know? And it's sort of more of a, the smaller sort of self-contained, I keep using the word organic because I feel like that's really relevant. It sort of came about organically. It wasn't really planned that way. You know, when we did Cyberforce and the Aphrodite thing, that was very planned, you know, but this sort of were just different books I wanted to write, and I had a lot of fun with it. So it just kind of came from a place of fun.
Yeah, you know, when you're talking about the organic nature of what you're doing, and I'm thinking of the opposite, and for me, as much as I enjoy DC, when they try to force almost everything that takes place in some way or another in Gotham, that annoys me to no end.
Yeah, and the whole world out there.
Yeah, and so you're bringing this together. So, I mean, how did what are the origins, I guess, of this organic growth? You started with Think Tank within this universe. So how did it go from there?
Well, we launched Think Tank in 2011. I launched Postal in 2014, and Tithe came out in 2015. So it's sort of, there were 3 different series. The Tithe was initially intended to be a 4-issue miniseries, and that was it. But it did really well. People liked it. We sold a lot of the trades, and whenever that happens, you're like, oh, you got to do another one. And then so I tried to figure out how to take that on beyond that, and worked with a different artist. Because the Tithe was initially an attempt to sort of take a break between Think Tank Volumes 3 and 4. Rasan wanted to do something different. And he and I are doing the same thing, where he and I are doing another, just a mini-series between Think Tank Volumes 6 and 7. So, called The Rook, which we haven't announced yet, but it's kind of a cop drama.
Okay.
About a rookie cop, and it's in a city with political things. It's like a chess allegory. So, for me, it's it sort of happened. It just comes from a place of I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I think that comes across to people that are reading it and see it kind of happening that way. So I just try to have fun with it.
Well, I was about to ask if you have any plans for, let's say, even another series out of this, but if it grows organically, who knows? I mean, something may come up soon you're not even aware of now.
Yeah. I try to keep things in groups of 3. I'm a big fan of 3 title things, like Tide, Think Tank, Postal. We have Sunstone, Bloodstain, and Swing. Those are 3 titles that connect. I think, because to me, I always look at that's like $10 a month. It's a manageable number. Like, if you want to read these things, you can do that. So I've always been a fan of kind of a 3-title set. So the various things that we do are kind of done that way.
Now, the title you started with first of the series, Think Tank, did you begin this and knowing that you would want it to be maybe limited, but then you expanded it beyond, let's say, the initial 1 or 2 arcs, or did you have plans to do this as an ongoing from the beginning?
You always want to do something ongoing, and you never plan it that way. I mean, you always write things as if it's going to be the last arc, because you never know, given on sales and things, how it's going to work. So with Think Tank specifically, the first 12 issues were 1 arc, and that's volumes 1, 2, and 3. And so volume 4 and 5 are very self-contained, standalone. Like, you could just read volume 4 or volume 5 and not having read anything before. But volume 1, 2, and 3 are all a long, connected storyline. So I kind of was working with that premise. But like with Postal's the one exception to that rule. I said from the beginning I want to do at least 24 issues of Postal, and which is in effect an ongoing series in this market. So, and I think we're going to end up doing 25. We might do more. If the TV series hits, we might do even more. But Tithe I intended as a 4-issue mini, and like I said, just because it sold so well, we ended up doing an additional arc, and now I'm doing Samaritan, which is the 3rd arc.
Okay. Now, you were telling me before we turned the mic on about your background in physics, and so how has your experience, your education in science impacted any of the comics that you do?
It helps me a lot in terms of how I research and break down the stories, and like I'm very methodical in how I break down my outlines and stuff like that, which is a little bit of the scientific method, how you attack and structure things. I do a tremendous amount of reading and research and forward planning, which I think a lot of writers don't do. So there's kind of something, and I envy the writers that can just sit down and just start writing cold and just go crazy with it. I can't do that at all. I have to sort of meticulously lay things out. I use a lot of legal pads and little yellow Post-it notes. I'll go on my table and connect scenes together and then write it out. And then I'll actually, after I've done that for weeks and done the research, then I'll actually start writing. So it's a much more laborious process, I think, for me than it is for other writers.
Well, what are some of the biggest challenges of writing and then juggling multiple titles at the same time?
Well, you have to constantly shift gears in your head. I try to make sure I'm only working on one thing a week. So, like, this is Think Tank week. Next week will be Postal week. The week after will be Aphrodite 9 week. And it usually takes me a day. The easiest way for me to get into it is to just reread the old stuff. I reread the old stuff, and then I just sit down and I start writing. So it usually takes me half a day to get my mind set back into it. And then by that time, I'm into it, and I start cranking. So I've had to work on different projects in the same day, but it's extremely hard. And I don't like doing it at all. And I've done that before where I was writing the wrong thing, and I realized I was using a voice for a character from another title in the character's voice, and I had to go back and fix that because that's a continuity gaffe, So it can be difficult, but I'm working on 7 different projects right now, so sometimes it's difficult to bounce around.
Well, for our listeners who aren't familiar with your work with Top Cow, where can they go to learn more about this?
Well, you can catch me on Facebook, Self-Loathing Narcissist, just like that sounds. It's my loan-out company. My ex-wife called me that, so I just adopted it as a moniker. And I'm on Top Cow Matt, M-A-T-T, on Twitter. Or you can go to any of the Top Cow feeds. Top Cow, T-O-P-C-O-W, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just there's the corporate feed. But on the TopCow.com website, we actually have the bottom right corner, there's a free comics area. There's over 100 different free books, and I've written like 30 of them. So you can download a bunch of free comics and see if you like it.
Yeah. And I see you're giving out cards for, a free postal?
Yeah, free postal, free think tank. I mean, if you want to take those and put a link to the in the show notes, that'd be great.
I definitely will do that.
I'll link it around all the feeds to promote the show, too.
Okay. Well, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me and the Comics Alternative, and I hope your experience in Dallas is a good one.
I'm having a great time. Thank you so much.
That was a nice mix of guests who have been on the show and some guests who haven't been on the show before.
Yes. I always see Robert and Joe at the Dallas Con because, they're from the DFW area. Mm-hmm. I had interviewed Ed Brisson about a year and a half ago for the podcast, but this was the first time that I actually got to meet him in person. So he's a really nice guy. And same with Matt Hawkins. It's the first time I ever talked with him. But it was really good to see Terry Moore again. I guess one, because I wanted him to sign a few things, but I also got the chance to talk with him about his new series, Motor Girl, which I really enjoy. And that's one of those that I've been wanting to talk about on the podcast, but we haven't been able to work it in. But those were really great conversations. And I also got to learn a little bit about a local publisher, Dusk Comics, that they're calling themselves Dusk Publishing because they're branching out into prose as well. But if you like goth stuff, then you should definitely check out Dusk. And I want to thank Raechel for taking the time and talking with me.
Yeah, that's great. The one I was particularly interested in too. I'm interested in all of them, but with Matt Hawkins, I met him at a local convention here in Columbia, South Carolina last year, and the conditions there weren't conducive to doing an interview, but I talked about him about possibly being on the podcast at some time, and you helped fulfill that promise.
Yeah, well, maybe when he has something coming out in the future, which is very likely given as prolific as he is, we can have him on for a regular interview instead of just something kind of quick on the floor. But now we should also mention that there is a companion on location episode that's coming out about the same time as this one, which is of conversations you had at your Sumter Comic Arts Symposium.
Yeah, that's right. So we were both busy with conventions this weekend, and neither of them were WonderCon, the big convention going on in San Diego this weekend as well. So it was a busy weekend for comics people.
Yes. So we hope you enjoyed our conversations, this episode at the Dallas Fan Expo, and then the other one that you can listen to, where Andy talks with several creators at the Sumter Comic Arts Symposium. Mm-hmm. And if you want to find comics by the people that I talked with at the Dallas Con, then you would do well to check out the website of our sponsor, which is Discount Comic Book Service. If you go to dcbservice.com, you will find a slew of specials. It's a great place to get all of your titles. That's dcbservice.com. And after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what you thought about our interviews on location at the Dallas Fan Expo. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a voice message online via SpeakPipe. Or you can call us the old-fashioned way by picking up the phone and dialing 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
That's right. You can also get a hold of us by email. We are two guys at comicsalternative.com, or you can get a hold of us individually. I'm Andy at comicsalternative.com.
And I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com.
We also have our Twitter feed that you can check out at the number 2 guys with PhDs.
That's right. But you can also find us on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and on Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to our website, which is comicsalternative.com.
That's right. All the ways to get a hold of us, let us know how we're doing, and find out what we're doing.
That's right. And we have more fun shows in the days to come, so check those out soon. Until then, I'm Derek.
I'm Andy. See ya.